Everybody, welcome back to another video. In today's film we're going to be talking about zone focusing and what zone focusing is and how to use it and how to apply it to your photography. We're really talking about manual focus. You can use zone focusing with autofocus lenses by using them in the manual focus way, whether the switch is on the lens or on the camera body, i.e. Canon and Nikon. And the basic idea of zone focusing is that you choose the area that you want to be in focus. Now with a point and shoot such as this little Nikon camera, it's not so easy to do. This is really a point and shoot, and that's exactly what you do with it. You point it and you shoot it and the camera kind of does everything for you. So with these sort of cameras it's not so easy to do it because you've got no control over the aperture or the focusing, so it doesn't really apply to this sort of camera. If I show it to you the right way up it would help. So basically we're going to be talking about lenses, and in this particular case the older the lens probably the better. The old manual focus lenses, this is a camera I've just grabbed. This is a Praktica with a Wideangle colour scope on it. It doesn't really matter what the lens is, but this is what you're looking at. It's on a lens, obviously you've got the aperture ring, which is this one here that allows us to select the aperture. We have a focus control here, and we have all these markings across here, and this is what we're going to be using for doing our zone focusing. So a combination of the two will determine where the area of focus is. So for example, street photography, this is something that's quite commonly used, and it doesn't just apply, this is an SLR in this case, it also applies to rangefinders. Here's one of my favourite little rangefinders of the moment, and you can see this has distance scale, and it also has an aperture ring, and it also has this scale here, which is called a depth of field scale. So it has the apertures 3.5, 8 and 16 in this case. This is also a depth of field scale here. The red mark is for infrared film. You'll see this on a lot of lenses, and that's where the point of focus is when you're using an infrared film, and the white one is the focus when you're using normal film, normal black and white or colour film. Here's another rangefinder example. This is a Kiev, and this time the depth of field scale on this one is around the barrel. So this is what you're looking for, is a depth of field scale. Now just to show you some more modern lenses, this is a G series 50mm 1.8. You can see it has a depth of field scale, but it's only marked with f16 on it. It's not particularly detailed. So for zone focusing, this lens is not really particularly useful. However, the older, this is an AF Nikkor, this has a better scale on it. So you see it's got 22, 16 and 11 on there. So this is a little bit more usable for zone focusing. And even on really expensive lenses, this is a 35mm 1.4 from Canon. It does have the scale on there, but the old manual lenses have far more detail on them. Again, red mark for infrared. I don't quite know. Obviously this lens dates back to film days and can still be used on filmy f-mount cameras. But yeah, even this really expensive lens only has this little bit on here for manual focusing. Obviously autofocus is kind of what people use, but the zone system you will find is quicker because you don't have to really worry about focusing. So if you're doing street photography, there's obviously two scales here, one in meters and one in feet. So if I want everything to be in focus between 1 meter and say 2 meters, what I would have to do is decide on the aperture. Now in this case, if I'm shooting at f16, and I set that to 1 meter. At f16, everything between the 1 meter and just over 2 meters would be in focus. Obviously for street you want it a little bit more than that, so you want to say maybe up to 3. So for 3, if I did it at f16, that would be everything from just over 1 meter through to just over 3 meters would be in focus. Now obviously you can narrow that down by selecting, say, f8. So if I put that on 1.5 at f8, everything from 1.5 meters through to about 2.5 meters would be in focus. It's a bit trial and error, particularly with film. With digital cameras it would be easier, so maybe using manual lenses adapted onto a digital camera would be the way to learn this rather than wasting a lot of money on film. But that's the basics of zone focusing, is that you select the aperture and the focus so that you can decide what area is going to be in focus and what area isn't. Obviously you need to use quite a small aperture, like a large f number, gives you the most depth of field, whereas if you were shooting at f4, it's a very, very narrow zone that's going to be in focus. Now the other one that we quite often get asked about is hyperfocal. Now hyperfocal is if I set infinity, which is this mark on the end here, to f16 in this case, everything from about 1.8 meters through to infinity will be in focus. So as long as something's further away than 1.8 meters and closer than infinity, it's going to be in focus. So basically at that setting I don't need to focus, I can just take the shot, and I know that everything from about 2 meters through to infinity is going to be sharp. If I'm shooting close up and I want to be shooting at the minimum distance, if I set that to 16, then that's going to be everything between 0.45 of a meter and about 0.6 of a meter is going to be in focus. So quite a lot of creative control as to how you use it. In street you could do it with zone, or you could do it with hyperfocal, where you're going with everything's going to be in focus. See there, when you focus at infinity at f16, everything from 3 meters to infinity is going to be in the picture. But when you set that there, it makes it a lot closer. So that's it on an SLR. This is my little packs. And the same thing with this, if I set the aperture to f8 in this case, and if I look at the focusing scale, because the focus on this is jammed like they always are, infinity is next to f8, so if I shoot at f8, everything from around about 8, I think this is in feet, isn't it? Yeah, everything from 8 feet through to infinity will be in focus at f8. So even though the focus is jammed on this camera, it needs stripping and re-greasing, everything is going to be sharp at f8 between infinity all the way down to what did I say it was? This was in feet, isn't it? So all the way down to just over 6 feet, sorry, 8 feet. So it's still quite a usable camera, it's quite useful. This is another rangefinder camera. Similar things, is a 35mm lens that's on this one. So again, if I focus at infinity, other way, there's my infinity mark. So if I set my infinity on this at f8, f8's a good starting point. f8, lens will be nice and sharp, and it's a reasonable aperture to use. And on this, the other side of the scale, and this is in feet or meters, I presume it's Russian, so I presume it would be in meters. Yeah, it is in meters. So f8, everything from under 2 feet right the way through to infinity would be in focus. So that would be ideal for street photography. You wouldn't need to focus the lens manually at all. You could just leave it on that, shoot at f8, just compose your image, and away you go. Another example of a modern lens, this is a Canon EFS 24mm. Doesn't have any sort of nothing there to help you with either hyperfocal or zone focusing whatsoever. So there's a sort of basic introduction to zone focusing and hyperfocal focusing. Oh, that's a mouthful. So this is what these scales mean. It's why older manual lenses are probably your best bet, because they have the best scales on them. Since the introduction of autofocus, the scales have by and large disappeared. A wide angle lens will give you obviously greater depth of field. This is that lens I repaired or took the fungus out of. This is a Zuku 100mm 2.8. So you can see with this that the depth is a lot less. So if I set infinity at 22, in meter terms it's coming down to about 7.5. So a long lens. If you're shooting sports, etc., or wildlife, then maybe zone focusing could help you out there. But a wide angle lens is where it really kind of works best. You know, something 35mm and below, like a 21mm, is another lens that you just don't need to use any sort of focus with it at all if you set it up correctly. You can just set your lens up and shoot. So there you have it, folks. Basic introduction to zone focusing and hyperfocal, where you want everything to be in focus, or where you want to choose a specific area that you want to be in focus. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Comments, questions, queries, etc., anything I've missed down below, any tips and tricks, recommendations for lenses. I would say I think the manual lenses are the ones that have the better scales on them. Depth of field scales really have largely disappeared from autofocus lenses. But it's faster than autofocus, because you don't really have to focus if you set it up correctly. No need to focus. And yeah, comment, queries, like, subscribe, share, all that usual sort of stuff. And yeah, I'll say anything I've missed or any questions and queries, just drop them down below. Always respond to anything that's in the comment section, and look forward to seeing you in the next one. I checked this morning, we're on 97 subscribers, so we're getting really close to that giveaway. I imagine it's going to be next week sometime, possibly before this weekend. But yep, hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.